Hello, everybody, and welcome to McBiz, the radio show of the Martin County Business Exchange Club. Lee Carroll here with Big Frank Mezzapel on the board. Hey, Big Frank.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, doing great. Was gone last week. Be here for a couple weeks, then gone again. Back for a couple weeks. So we have a returning guest that we're very familiar with, not just because he's in our club, but also he's been a frequent guest here, and as we all know, has his own show or shows on the radio here. In fact, long before I was the host of this, I was a guest on his show.
Well, we have to go through a special
times.
Booking agent, for this guest,
So the Martin County Business Exchange Club is a category-specific business club. We are looking for new members, by the way. It's a friendly referral service club. And as we've said on here many times before, will be it if you're referred by somebody in the club and you mess up. So the Martin County Business Exchange Club is open to, I just say, big shots of businesses, owner or manager of something. And category specific means there's only one of whatever category we're talking about. There are a bunch of them open. You can't just show up and say, hey, I want to join. You need to be invited in. McBiz is online. Anybody can call the station, talk to Big Frank. He can tell you those details. But the accountant that's in our club is our guest today.
Right.
Mark Breckbill.
Also
Hello.
known as Captain Chaos.
There you go. That fits more than anything else.
And there he is.
Mark, welcome to our show.
Thank you. I like being here.
And not wasn't that long
something
ago.
flashed up there for Frank and told him to get smart.
Yeah.
He needs that.
Yeah.
I didn't know they had a reminder for that.
Oh, yes.
But Frank, that's good for you. Good job.
I need a reminder for everything now.
That's true.
Yes.
That's true.
Well, I've mentioned on the show numerous times I announced sports for the high school, and I've even messed up my own wife's name before by mixing her first name up with the trainer's last name. So I write everything down anymore. You go to mention the principal's name, and don't ever have that problem anymore because it's all written down.
You sure weren't thinking about FSU football?
That I never think about. No, that I don't have any problems messing
I think
that up.
Jimbo's wife got mixed up with the trainer there too, didn't she?
Yes, I believe she did. I think it was a trainer.
We had Susie Hutchison here yesterday, and we talked about FSU football yesterday.
Yeah, Lee and I don't do that.
Well, I have.
We have no use for that, so we don't do that.
I have to tell you that the Kiwanis Club, which I believe you are a member of, Frank, used to put on. Mark was too, or maybe still is.
The other one, yeah.
Oh, the other one, but we're all the original one when there was only one in Stewart anyway. But they put on a roast for a number of years that made some money. I don't know how much. I was never a part of the anything in it, and actually at the time was no longer a member of the club. But the last year they did the actual roast itself. They always invited somebody local representing one of the big three, and then also occasionally UCF or FAU to come to this thing. And the idea was a roast. You're supposed to say bad things about the other schools. And one year, the last year, they asked me if I would be the Gator announcer, and that was the year we had won both football and basketball national championships. So it's hard to mess that up. And I had a number of jokes, and Vinny Testaverde became Vinny Testicles. I mean, there was a lot of good things to go on. Now, the Miami guy was an All-American from Jupiter, so it's kind of hard to insult him personally. Plus, he was significantly larger than me, and I have a feeling could have outrun me anyway, so I was very nice to him, but had a lot of fun against the hurricanes, which I refer to as the tropical depressions. But
and we don't know anybody halfway decent that has ever played for that team.
There you go. No, not personally. Deacons doesn't listen to the show.
Yeah,
so
good. That's why
him.
we can take as many shots at David Deacons as we want.
And by the way, he was on the show not too long ago. It was very interesting as he talked about his recruitment and how he ended up, instead of going to Jacksonville State and Alabama, who were the defending Division II back then, they called it national champions, and ended up at Miami. But Susie was the FSU local representative. Now, she was handicapped because she really didn't know a whole lot about football.
Right. That's why after she gave her talk, she took her chair and left the room because she didn't want to take questions.
Right. And she looked at me after I had talked and said, "You are a nasty man." And I said, "This is a roast. It is not friendly."
That's right. That's right.
But yeah, it was funny. And boy, talk about a lady who does awfully good things for this community.
Yeah.
Susie is way, if not the top of the list, easily in the top 5,
You
and
bet.
has been doing it forever. So congratulations, Susie, even though she isn't Noel.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, we don't know that against her. No. No.
well, yeah, we do, but not enough to not think well of her.
That's right. She's one of the few from that school that have made a success of themselves. You know,
there you go.
You're already starting from a disadvantage.
That's right. And she made it to the finish line.
220-978-8220-WST if you want to talk to Frank.
Who has no dog in this fight.
He has no dog in this fight.
So he will plead neutrality on that. But Mark, we're glad that you're here, and we've talked occasionally to people on the show that have traveled around. Economics, that's kind of boring stuff, and Pete Navarrete is going to be here next week. He's a lot smarter than you are anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
So we'll let him be the economics guy with us tomorrow or next Wednesday. But you've just gotten back from an interesting place that some of our guests might be interested in hearing about, regardless of their political thoughts. So tell us what you can and what you want to tell us, because what happens in Cuba doesn't stay in Cuba. So
No.
Tell us what happened in your journey to Cuba.
Well, first of all, it's kind of economic. I mentioned this on one of my shows. I mentioned one of those on one of my shows that previously talked a little bit about it. But it's I had never. I mean, I've done a lot of analysis over the years in terms of capitalism versus communism, and some of the things, and then you hear all these stories about how communism actually works in process, and what
Theoretically.
actually happens. What's supposed to theoretically happen, but then you hear all the stories about basically third world countries and all that kind of stuff. And so recently I had an opportunity to take a cruise to Cuba. I was asked to be a speaker on a cruise for the FICPA, speaking on international financial reporting standards. So
Now, does that mean that you were able to deduct the cost of this trip?
You betcha.
Okay.
So anyway, and as long as we didn't go in international waters, I was okay. No, so we went down to Cuba, and it was kind of interesting because I had never been to any place like that, but it was really pretty interesting. I spent a day by myself, spent a day, and we went to. We went on a couple. I went on a couple excursions. There were 3 excursions I went on, so it really did get. Supposedly you're supposed to be going. The only way you can go to Cuba now is on previously on person-to-person exchanges,
Right, visiting family or something.
Well, yeah, and interaction, and then now they have what they call group-to-group cultural exchange. So you're supposed to be getting to know the population. And if you don't go through these excursions, you're supposed to keep a diary. I haven't kept a diary since I was in 5th grade, so there's no way I was. So I signed up for excursions because
Right.
I didn't want to write stuff down.
No.
So, but as it turned out, it was actually really an exchange. The people we met there were unbelievably nice. Most of them are extremely pro-American, particularly as it relates to baseball. By the way, they
Right, about
love
that.
baseball down there.
I've heard that.
And my original tour guide, the one that I started with in the morning, my first excursion started about 9:00. We went to we took a trip around the town around Havana. We were in Havana. Took a little trip around on a bus, and they did all the sightseeing.
Now, was that a tourist bus or a local bus?
It was
a special tourist bus.
It was kind of a tourist bus, yeah. Local transportation, you wait 2 hours for local transportation to go anywhere. But so we went on that, and then we went to a cigar factory, and we went to a place to get rum and Cuban coffee and cigars. You could buy them. So the interesting thing, I'll just quickly say that.
No, you don't have to be quickly. We got 45 minutes.
Oh, okay. So, but I'll slowly say is that it was no.
That was pro or after the rum?
Yeah, that was after the rum. That was after the coffee. But anyway, what happened is the tour guide, he said to us, he spoke very good English, and he was there in Cuba, and he said, he says, I don't really get into the politics. I don't care what the countries think of each other. But he said the people in Cuba love the people in the United States, and we want to be friends, and we want to do business with you guys. We need to do business with you. Our economy is basically in the tank. The average wage for a Cuban, and they all get paid an average amount, whether you're a doctor or the guy leading the tour bus, who probably made more money than the doctor because of tips. The average pay in Cuba is $25 per month, not day. And with that, of course, you say, well, you get subsidized food. Yeah, with that, they buy subsidized food. They get a bag of rice, which, by the way, Cuba is the largest consumer of rice per capita of any country in the world, including China and Japan. You get some beans. You get, I think it was 4 eggs and a chicken. Now, you can't.
Now, that is how, in what
That's
time
a
period?
And
Now, is that chicken alive or is it?
No, dead.
Okay. Okay.
And there's the problem.
Yeah.
You have to eat the chicken almost right away
No
because
refrigeration.
they have refrigerators, but there are rolling blackouts that last 12 to 14 hours at a shot. So you have rolling blackouts that take place. So you can't keep anything cold. So
Right.
there's nothing that goes. They have no power. They have, everything that they have there is kind of amazing. But because we went there and I thought there'd be a lot of propaganda. Actually, you figure that the people that have an interaction with the U.S. that the government is wanting them to put their way of life in the best possible light, right?
And jam it down everybody's throat.
Right. Not at all. I mean, every single one of the people that we dealt with were very honest about the fact that the government, it can't sustain. 90% of the people work for the government. You get free housing, but you don't have enough money to fix your place up. So the place looks like bombs hit it. I mean, everything's falling apart. Nothing works.
And part of the problem with communism is there's no motivation to fix it up because you don't own it anyway.
Well, right. And that's
And
the
making
thing.
it better to sell to somebody won't do any good because you
And the
can't do it.
government won't do it because they don't have any money to do it.
Right.
So you get free health care, which is fantastic. You get free health care, but you don't get much medicine because the government itself can't afford the medicine. So even though you could go to the hospital and get the medicine, you can't get it because they can't get it because they can't afford it. So there's a lot of these things that you get for free, but they're not worth anything. I mean, and by the way, you're getting work done by a $25 a month doctor who could be making more money leading the local tour with a $20 tip. So yeah, it is. They have a currency there that is called a CUC, C-U-C. And that's the stated government currency. And so you exchange dollars for cooks.
On a set amount by the government, not in the open market.
Exactly,
I assume. Okay.
exactly. And you can't really take that money with you. So what you do is a dollar was worth 87.5 cooks. So that meant that the
In the
cook
official
was
rate.
stronger than the dollar.
Okay.
And then if I'd have brought it back later, not spent it, it probably would have been less coming back. But anyway, what they did is, and so you could spend these things there, but the local currency I think is also called a cook, but it's like the peso cook, and it's 24 of those for the straight cook. So that gives you an indication of what the dollar's really worth versus their currency. And you cannot
Worth basically 25 times what the government's willing to give you for it.
Right. And so and they won't you can't take any of that currency outside the country.
Now, when you went, I don't know if you bought anything when you were there, but I was curious if they would have preferred you paid them in dollars.
Well, it's interesting.
Depending on whether there's a black market enough that the average Joe can exchange those to
Well,
down the road.
the interesting thing is that I originally exchanged for cooks and on my first trip. Fortunately, I had dollars with me, and they will take dollars. When you spend the dollars in the shops, they use the same exchange rate. I mean, they do not.
The 87, I don't know.
Yeah, you don't give you any break. But they will take them, and they probably would prefer that they have them because they can send those back to family over in. There's about 2 million expatriates that are primarily in Miami, but are all in the United States. And so a lot of these people are in contact with them, and so it was really interesting from that standpoint. to find out, what was going on there. But they will take dollars, which I then found out. So I didn't ever do any exchanges again. I just used dollars. You got to be careful. You don't want to get any of their currency in exchange.
Right.
You might as well just leave it as a tip.
Yeah, right.
But it's
just round it up to the nearest dollar and give it to them.
Yeah, and so anyway, it was kind of interesting. All of that was kind of interesting. But we went to the places, and like I said, you thought there'd be a lot of propaganda, but there was no propaganda. It was very blunt and honest. And it was funny, though. Everything was, this is pre-revolution. Pre-revolution. There's nothing post-revolution, by the way. No buildings, no structures, no cars. Nothing is post-revolution. Revolution was 1959.
Right.
So everything is pre-revolution. All the buildings were built by U.S. corporations and abandoned when Castro took over, or
kicked them out. Right.
Yeah, he kicked them out. It was interesting that we went to Revolutionary Square. We went to the largest cemetery in Latin America, I think. We went in one of the oldest, if not the oldest. So they took us to a lot of different places where we got to see culturally. But again, most of this stuff is buildings that were old buildings built by wealthy people that left, and now they've been turned into apartments. So they took a mansion and they put 40 people in it, and then they're all living in bedrooms and closets, and then but they're all falling apart. Mm-hmm. And one of the buildings, their national hotel, was a Hilton, and it's now a joint venture between a Spanish company and the Cuban government. But it's a 5-star hotel. It depends on what your definition of 5-star is, but we wouldn't define it as 5-star.
Right.
It might be 3, but it was not.
Now, is that where you stayed, or did you stay on the boat the whole time?
No, I stayed on the ship the whole time. It's interesting because if I was doing Priceline, I probably the National Hotel wouldn't come in to play. It would be below my criteria. But we went to all this stuff. So it was very interesting to talk to the people. You were never afraid. There is no Second Amendment in Cuba. If you own a gun, you're shot. Unless you happen to own the gun because you're the government, and then you're shooting someone else. So you were never afraid there, because nobody would dare attack a tourist, because if they lose their tourism, they're done.
Right.
I mean, you could take anything else from them, probably even their oil, but if you took the tourists from them, because remember, U.S. is just now going here. The other tourists have been here forever. The euro is very popular, in terms of its currency over there, and that money has been. Is keeping that government alive. About 90% of the people work for the U.S. government. I mean, for the communist government, they would have been able to. It would be 100%, but not too long ago, they have a new president. Raul stepped down. He's still the head of the Communist Party, but he stepped down, and there is a new president who seems to be real pro-capitalism. And so they're struggling with this whole thing with currency and whether they should go to one currency and what that currency should be, and all of that. But it was interesting because there's a big change there now that's going on, and they're all trying to make a move, and they need the U.S. to do that. It's funny that I'll make a slight political comment, but we brought Russia to its knees economically, not militarily. We made sure we had a military so they couldn't attack us economically. Cuba doesn't own anything they could attack us with, I don't think. I mean, we were on high alert, theoretically, going to Cuba. When our cruise, there was some concern about whether we should go because, Cuba was raised from kind of one status to a high alert status, almost similar to North Korea or someplace like that, because there was the thought that the Cuban government had attacked our embassy with sound waves.
Right. I remember reading about that.
Right. What actually happened, and we got this before from the cruise people and everything else, is that the Cuban government was trying to listen to our embassy to see if they could pick up some information, and the equipment that they were using was so old that it produced sound waves that bounced off the windows and ricocheted off and destroyed the eardrums of the people at the embassy. It was not a sonar attack. It was such lousy equipment that nobody even dreamed that they could be that bad. But I'm sure it was pre-revolution. It had to be everything's pre-revolution.
Maybe that or something the Russians gave them 30 years ago.
Yeah. So anyway, so we go. So I'll tell you a couple real quick stories because it's kind of interesting. So we go to the like I said, we went on all these tours and learned a lot of stuff, and it was really, really interesting. But In the process, I went to the first place that we went that was actually government was the cigar factory. And I don't smoke cigars, but I really wanted to see the cigar factory. They hand roll 30,000 cigars a day in Cuba. A lot of it is done in Havana. There's the place that we went to in Havana, but there's places out west that are in western Cuba that are closer to the place they grow the tobacco. But you could not take any pictures in the factory, and you could not you couldn't buy any cigars in the factory. You couldn't take any pictures in there. And our tour guide and the factory tour guide said they didn't understand why that was the case, because you can do it in the Western plants. They don't care that there's nothing there. That people are rolling cigars.
Yeah, what would be the point of limiting that?
Yeah, and there's nothing. There is a science to rolling the cigars. It's not just they put them together.
But it's not a state secret.
But it's not a state secret. No, anybody that's probably got any idea about rolling cigars could do it. But anyway, so what happens is, so we go in there, and so they're all at these rows of tables, all rolling these cigars. And a lot of women, some people have been there for as much as 20 years, 30 years, some 10. But it's a good job. They get paid $25 a month, like the rest of them. Plus, they get 4 cigars for personal consumption a day. So that's what they get. So we're in there, and
they can't last past 30 years because they're dying of lung cancer.
Right. So I'm in there, and there's these rows and rows of these workers, and you were allowed to go in like one person or so and watch what they were doing or whatever. So there was about 25 or 30 of us, and there was their factory tour guide who was explaining everything, our tour guide who was the one that had taken us all over, and then a lady from the Communist Party, and she was about probably early 30s. And she's standing up there. She's basically got a cell phone, and she's just kind of looked like she was on Facebook. She's kind of just going through stuff, and she's looking around, making sure everybody's doing their job, and all that kind of stuff, and watching us just wander through the factory like she used to. So there's this guy over here. He's in a baseball cap, U.S. baseball cap. I forget who it was. But anyway, and so he catches my eye, and he's saying some stuff to me, and he's saying like 2 sentences, and then baños. Well, I knew baños was bathroom because I have to do that a lot. So that was a word I learned right away. So anyway, so I couldn't figure out what he was saying. And so I finally looked at him, and I just kind of shrugged like, I'm sorry, I didn't know. And so I started paying attention. And then, maybe 3 or 4 minutes later, I had to go to the baños. So I said to the guy up ahead, I said, can you tell me where to go? So he told me where to go. There was a women's and men's. So I went up to the men's restroom. And by the way, it was the worst thing I have ever seen in my life. From what I understand, the only place worse than that is Jensen Beach Elementary's toilets. But anyway, that's just what I heard at a school board meeting. But anyway, no, it was bad. You were going in a hole is what it amounted to. But I get in there, and this guy that I was talking to and 2 of his friends come running up to me, Now I'm by myself in this bathroom. They come running up to me, and they start shoving cigars in my face. 4 for $20. So for 20 cooks, they're going to give me 4 cigars. So I took one, I took it. I'm not even thinking. I'm just thinking, this pays this guy's monthly wage, Mm-hmm. So I do it, and I'm wearing cargo shorts, and they're stuffing cigars in my cargo shorts, and I got, so I got like 14 cigars, literally 14 cigars. They're in my pockets, they're in my cargo shorts. I got my pants shut down. So I walked out, and it happened all so fast, and I walked out of the bathroom, and then I'm thinking, shit, what the heck? I'm stealing cigars from the communist government. I'm going to go to prison for life.
Bingo. I don't know about life, but for a while.
And so I'm trying to think, what the heck I'm going to do? And I'm there. I'm trying to make sure, and I'm, and now I'm sure that the woman is looking at me solely by looking at me, right?
And you also hope you weren't set up.
Right. So then, about 5 minutes later, the guy that sold them to me, he gets up to go talk to her. Now I'm getting a little nervous, right?
You bet.
And then I watch him slip some bills underneath her cell phone, and I knew I was good to go.
Yep.
So I was done. But that's kind of
corruption at the lowest level.
And that's how they have to survive.
Corruption at the cigar level.
Right. And there's a reason why they don't take pictures there, because they know that it happens, and they don't want anybody to have a record of it. And it is a way that those people survive. I mean, that's a very good job. And those people need that money. And $20 for 4 cigars, their allotment for the day, is a lot of money.
You paid $20 or 20 cucos or whatever the
which was more dollars.
Right. Okay.
But but that's their equivalent of a little more than $20. That's more money than they get in a day.
Right.
So in a month. So it was, that's what happened. So that was what happened there. That was kind of interesting. And then afterwards, we could go and buy the cigars. We went to a place where you could buy it all. So it's not like it was illegal to take them out. You can buy cigars. It just, for whatever reason, they're not supposed to sell them in the factory.
Right.
But I did get 14 cigars that are hand rolled directly from the person that rolled them, so that's pretty cool. And then I bought 50 cigars coming out so that I could bring them back with me. And you could bring as many cigars as you want, as long you had to have a receipt above 50, I think, or somewhere in that range. They don't ask until you get up to about 100.
Meaning the American government when you come back?
The Cuban
or
government.
Cuban government when you leave?
Yeah, the Cuban government when you leave. A bunch of I bought a big, huge pound bags of coffee, Cuban coffee, these huge Cuban coffee bags, and which you could get as much. And you were only allowed 2 bottles of rum, so I brought back 2 bottles of rum. So that
Do they care how big the bottle is?
It was basically they have the 7-year aged Havana Club. That's the standard size. It's about a 750 milliliter bottle. The other one was a little bit smaller. But anyway, so that was the story there. That was the rum and the everything else. And then I got back from that at about 1 o'clock, and then at 2 o'clock I had to take a tour of Havana in an American Classic. So I rushed back from the boat, from the ship, got back to and I was in a 1951 Chevy Bel Air, and it was blue, and it was the original equipment. So it was really pretty cool, and I got to do that. So I'll tell you the rest of the story coming up here, like Phil Harvey. The rest of the story.
Paul Harvey.
Paul Harvey.
There
Phil
you go.
Harvey's another guy. No, he's down in Stewart. But anyway, Paul Harvey, and we'll come back.
All right, now it's time for today's Southeast AgNet Report, brought to you by Everglades Farm Equipment, a family-owned business for the past 50 years with 10 Florida locations, including Fort Pierce, Okeechobee, and Loxahatchee. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to McBiz, otherwise known as the Cuba Tourist Report Show. Here with Mark Breckbill with some very interesting stories about and facts about what took place in his recent trip to Cuba. We're glad it's recent because otherwise he'd forget all this stuff.
Yes.
So it worked out good.
It's the second thing to go.
Yeah, because otherwise he's always going to the local baños.
Yeah,
yes, there you go.
Spent a lot of time there.
I will remember that.
Yes.
But I also remember that you were. We had to break because Frank told us you had to be quiet because he had to go to all the commercial stuff.
That's right.
You were in a 1951 Bel Air.
Right.
So tell us what happened.
It was blue. First of all, everybody hears all the stories. Everybody wants to go to Cuba to ride in these classic cars.
Right.
Right. None of them are classic.
No.
Now mine came close.
Or they are as old. They're not Duesenbergs.
They're not
Pierce
original.
Arrows. Yeah.
In fact, they don't even have original paint anymore. They're painted like fluorescent pink and fluorescent green and all kinds of flashy colors, and they're really cool. I mean, it's fun to go in them. But you're not driving. People think, "Oh man, this is just like my mom and dad drove or something." Well, no, it's not. It's got a Russian engine. It's got it's probably got a Korean transmission. If it's got even that, it doesn't have anything. Most of these have nothing original. In fact, a lot of the engines have been replaced with diesel. And they're not even gas engines anymore. And they're not the authentic colors. The car that I was in, though, believe it or not, so I'm here. I don't speak any Spanish, really.
Baños, you got that?
I got that one.
Yeah.
But I did remember Donde Su Casa. But anyway, I don't remember.
Is this your house?
Where's your house?
Oh, where's your house?
So
okay.
I remembered some of that, but not much. And the guy that's driving the car, he's like 24, 25, maybe 26, and he doesn't speak a lick of English. But we communicated really pretty well. And I kind of learned that, he doesn't live in town. He lives outside of town. His family is mostly in Miami, and that he hopes to go there in a year. He's trying to save up his money. And he kind of talked to me a little bit. He didn't own the car. It was a friend of his. He just drove it. And, a few things like that. It was really kind of interesting to get to relate to him. And we kind of did a pretty good job of communicating. So, but you go all around you're going all around. You're going together. So all these cars are together. It was kind of neat. I got off the bus last where we were going to get our cars. So I thought, and I was by myself, so I thought I was going to get really nothing.
Right, the worst thing out there.
And I probably would have, except that he was up there, and I think he was supposed to go on the next one, but I came up and I saw his car, and it was the only one that looked authentic, so I asked him if he could go with him, and he said sure. And it was, and his car was completely authentic, except the gauges had been replaced. But he did have the original engine and the transmission. So he had, most of his stuff was original paint color and all of that. There's a lot of Bondo you see all over the place, but it was pretty much, but his was original. And he gave me this big hat that I could wear. It was fun, and took some pictures. And that was really a lot of fun. And you got to see, you got to go through town and see it. It was kind of the same places we went on the tour bus, but we did get to go to, the cemetery and see that. That was separate.
Well, it's different when you're not on a bus.
Yeah,
in a private car, it's different.
And I'm sitting in the front.
Experience.
I'm sitting in the front seat with my arm on the, hanging out. It was pretty cool, And so we're driving around. So that thing got over with about 5:30. And so, again, I got to go back and catch the next tour because all the tours leave from the ship, not from the terminal or whatever.
Right.
So I got back, and the next one was supposed to go at 8 o'clock. I was going to the Tropicana. And so I went back, got to the ship, and so I had to change clothes because you had to dress different for the Tropicana. It was a little more formal. And I had to, and I wanted to grab
more cargo shorts.
Right, no more cargo shorts. Besides, they were full of cigars, so I had those packed away. So anyway, I go back, and I had to eat first. I was grabbing something to eat, and my phone, I had originally was supposed to get a new phone, and they delivered it right before I got on the ship. Really, I mean, at the office, but it was before I went to get the ship, so I couldn't update anything because I didn't have Wi-Fi. Once I got on the ship, I lost Wi-Fi and the wireless connection, so I was using my old phone still, and the phone wouldn't hold a charge, and the charger didn't work unless I put it on the wireless. So what I was getting at is it was also where I was taking pictures. So I had taken all the pictures of all this other stuff so far, but now I've gotten back. I haven't had a chance to put it on the charger. I made the mistake of taking it with me to dinner, and so the charge went down on it. So now I'm going to the Tropicana, and I'm running out of charge.
Oh, boy.
I look at my ticket, and I thought it was 8 o'clock. The Tropicana was 10 to midnight, and so I was supposed to go at 8. You get there about 9, and then the show's from 10 to 12. So I look at my ticket and get ready. And I look at that thing and I see, oh man, 7:35, and it's already like 7:40, right?
Oh boy.
So I rushed down to the boat or to the ship's area where you got to log in, and they said, no, yours is already gone. Just go with the next bus. And so they sent me with this other bus, and so I got down there, and everything's good because it takes a long time. My group probably wasn't really that far ahead of me because by the time you go through there and exchange stuff and get cooks and all that stuff. So I just pretty much got on the bus. We got there at 9 o'clock, and so they have a little stuff outside. My phone was dead. I thought I got one picture of the Tropicana sign because I thought I got my phone to come back, but it didn't. So I didn't really get any pictures, which is really disappointing.
That is, yeah.
But a couple things about it is that as you're going in, you're in line. They have some performers outside, some dancers. They want you to do salsa. I don't dance. I can't dance. I don't know anything about salsa other than you put it on chips with a little guac, and I'm good to go.
Got it.
But anyway, so one of the girls came up to me and wanted me to salsa dance. I said, nope, don't do salsa. I'm not doing that. And so I'm waiting in line, and I get inside. You have to pay $5 to be able to take pictures, which I would have gladly paid, but I didn't have $5. I mean, I didn't have pictures because I didn't have a camera. So we go in, and the maitre d' for the Tropicana is seating you. Now, the Tropicana is actually Terra Firmata on steroids. I mean, it's unbelievable. This is this is their major performing center. This is like Radio City Music Hall or whatever. This is major entertainment.
As good as it gets.
As good as it gets. This is professional. This is in their capital, Havana. This is as good as it gets, right? So the facility is kind of cool, though. It is really outdoors. I never understood that. I always thought it was kind of some building, or you'd be in some smoke-filled building. You're not. You're outside, which can be a problem if it starts raining. But you're outside. They have all these palm trees and these other big trees around. And there's a huge round stage. There's a band behind. And we always think of this band as being a bunch of these guys with a bunch of instruments, and there's like 20 of them. There's not. There's about 6 or something like that. And then the dancers all dance on this stage. Well, the stage is big circular stage, and then they have these like almost like picnic table type tables that'll hold 6, 3 on each side, that go around the circular stage all the way around. And then that's the first row. There's an aisle. Then there's a second tier where there's a whole bunch of tables around in the second tier. Then there's a third tier and a back level, and it seats about 800 people. But it's a big thing, and the dancers dance on stage and they dance in the aisles, right? So, and it is true what most people have seen the Lucille Ball episodes and stuff, where she dresses up in the funny hat, with the feathers and all that. And that's actually these were girls probably in their 30s, late 20s, early 30s. They're all tall. They're probably like 5'9" or 5'10". For me, everything is tall, but they were all tall. They were all skimpily dressed. They had their little outfits on and all that kind of stuff because it's all show stuff. And so anyway, so we go in, the maitre d's seating the groups. And so you got Lucy there, right? And so they're seating the groups around and my group is going to end up way back in the second level, stage left, right? So you'll be able to see, but way, way back up here in the back. And so I go up, so the maitre d' says, how many in your party? And I said, just one. And he says, oh, you're by yourself? And I said, yeah, just one. And he says, oh, wait here. I have a better seat for you. So he seats my whole bus, right? And then he takes me all the way around front. And I'm sitting in the front of the stage, in the third seat from the stage, sitting right on the stage in the front.
That has to be pretty cool.
Which was really, really amazing. So at this point, I'm thinking, this is fantastic. I'm sitting right down on the stage. I can see all the dancers. I can see, and by the way, without being a little sexist, the men dancers were very, very good too. And some of the ladies, Mabel, would have loved to see them kick their leg as high as they could kick that leg because
Right.
they did some amazing things. And I'm not into that, but I think the ladies were. But anyway, so they were really good performers. It's all in Spanish, so I didn't understand a word of it, but they were good, and it was fun. It was 2 hours. They did give us a bottle of rum and a bunch of Coke, Cuba Libras, and we were good to go to watch the show. But what was neat, so it's a 2-hour show. It's getting close to midnight. It's about.
Now, let me ask you a question about
Sure.
the audience. And I know we have to take a break here now. Was the audience mostly Americans, Europeans,
It was
Cubans?
all cruise ships. All
Okay,
cruise
all
ships.
cruise ships.
This was weeknight. It was Wednesday night. It was all cruise ships. So we get in, and so they're doing the finale, right? So for the finale, they bring up all of the girls kind of are on stage. All of the guys are on stage. So the guys and the girls go out in the crowd and get people to dance with them so in the aisles, right? So I'm on the end of the aisle, and these two girls come walking down. And the one girl walks by me, and the second girl grabs the person that's sitting across from me, the guy that's sitting across from me, and asks him to get up. And so they get up and they stop there, and they're going to dance right there by the table, right? So I'm kind of just paying attention. And all of a sudden I feel a tap on my shoulder, and I turn around, and it's the first girl that had gone by, and she's reaching back and asking me if I want to stand up. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm in the aisle. I'm way stage left probably by this time because she's going to take me up on the side. Nobody will see me. I might be able to do this. And so I get up and I go with her. Well, so she walks me to where I think I'm going, and then she just keeps on going. And so I ended up as the only person on the stage live at the Tropicana in Havana, Cuba. And so I have danced professionally twice now, once on stage at the Tropicana and once at Terra Firmata, raising money for Stuart Main Street. So,
There you go.
That's the extent of my Cuba story.
All right, we'll be right back.
But it was pretty much like some of that stuff. But the girls were like.
Now, did anybody take pictures for you and email them to you or anything?
I'm trying to get some. I mean, I'm trying to get some pictures or
Text
video.
or email you or something?
Yeah, but I was the only one.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to McBiz, the radio show of the Martin County Business Exchange Club. Lee Carroll here with Big Frank Mezzapel and our guest.
Where we always ask the question, what is Mark up to now?
Yeah. But it was
and he's not bashful. He lets us know.
No, that's the whole point. You don't want somebody on the show that doesn't talk.
But you do want somebody on the show that doesn't dance. I'm telling you.
No, that's probably true, and we'll see if there's any extortion pictures.
Well, and contrary to the
that.
text I just got, it does not qualify me for dancing for the Martin Stars.
No,
It does not qualify me
Thankfully.
for that.
And I have to correct you. You said you danced professionally. No, you didn't receive money, so therefore you did not dance professionally.
I got free booze.
You got compensation, but you did not.
$20 worth of I got paid a month's pay in Cuba because I got a $25 bottle of rum that I got to
booze
drink.
and cigars. Okay.
There you go. That's a fair exchange for them to finally get him off the stage. They gave him the booze to get rid of him. So we'll give you this booze if you'll get off.
They had to give me some of that booze to get on there. Let me tell you.
True.
But it was fun.
Oh
well, it's funny. I'll bend everybody's ear for a few minutes about my one day in a communist country or communist place. In my youth, after college, 20 years old, I went to Europe, lived out of a backpack on $6 a day with a buddy. And we made our way to West Berlin. This is well before the wall fell. And we went to West Berlin. And decided while we were there that we were going to go ahead and attempt to get into East Berlin. That's through legal ways. Anyway, I know we were going to get caught in there. So we went through Checkpoint Charlie. And to this day, my buddy and I are the only two Americans I've ever met that went through Checkpoint Charlie to get into East Berlin. I have run across people who took tour buses and stuff, but never just on their own ambulatory walked through Checkpoint Charlie into East Berlin. And we spent a day there. And before you even get through the checkpoint, there's all kind of security stuff you go through. They take your passport away from you. They do a bunch of check, and eventually you get it back. So too long a story to tell that whole process. But with this limited time left and with a guest on the show. But anyway, when we were there in the mid-'70s, the war had been over a little over 30 years. And there were still bombed out buildings all over the place. And it kind of reminded me of what you're talking about, all the pre-revolutionary buildings with not a whole lot since. Now, they had fixed stuff up, and I'm in the Capitol. I'm supposed to be in the greatest place they have in the country. Right. And you can still see the bullet holes where the Russians shot up a building or no ceiling on it and all that kind of stuff, whereas West Berlin could not have been more different. There's one unbuilt building, and that's intentional as a remembrance of the war. But anyway, and there they made you exchange money. You couldn't get out of Checkpoint Charlie unless you'd exchanged American, whatever country you were from, but in our case, American dollars for East German Deutschmarks, which were worth, I think, I can't remember how many they made us exchange per dollar, but let's just say it was 6. And you had to exchange a certain number of dollars. And you had to spend them in the country. That way they got some currency from people that came in there because there wasn't a whole lot there you'd want to buy. So we had to buy a hot dog, there, right. That kind of stuff, and went around. And we had been warned in little guidebooks we looked at, do not follow the temptation of going to the black market, who may very well offer you 25 or 30 East German marks for $1, which means you could live like a king with that money. But what the heck are you going to buy? And we were actually approached by the black market. I have a friend who's going to the West. Now, who in East Germany is going to just go to the West? Nobody.
Right.
Unless you're a government guy.
Right.
And they hold your family hostage if you wanted to defect.
Right.
And my idiot friend I was with, who I'm still buddies with, and he lives in L.A., so he's not listening to the show.
I'll send him a copy.
He starts talking to the guy about it. I said, I don't have any idea who this guy is. When you arrest him and throw him in jail for 25 years, do not take me. I'm walking away. I wanted nothing to do with exchange. The other comment to make is that you mentioned how they didn't really preach to you. In East Berlin in those days, there were signs everywhere. And they weren't anti-democracy signs, but they were anti-capitalism signs. Right. It was communism versus capitalism was the battle they were fighting in propaganda there and losing.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, speaking of that, two things. I said that there was not a lot of propaganda in Cuba. They were very honest about stuff, and I asked them a question. I asked them 2 questions. One, I said, it's Wednesday, and we're driving around, and there's all these people wandering around the streets. And so I asked my tour guide. I said, "Are these people? Are they? Do they work a night shift or something?" And he says, "Well, let's see what day it is. It's Wednesday." Nope. And I said, "Well, what's going on?" He said, "Some people choose not to work." They get paid the same no matter what.
Right.
They choose not to work.
Which is the problem with communism to begin with.
Right.
Regardless of how good you do, you're going to make the same amount of money, so why work hard?
Right. One of the things that I learned that was interesting is Castro never intended to be communist, but he had wanted to be a nationalist. Basically, he was a fascist, and he didn't want to be a communist. But they were the only countries that would do business because you can't steal. You're not going to take stuff from Russia, right? You know, or they declare war on you. So that was the only place he could do business with. And so that's why they ended up really as communist, but it was not really an intent. The other question I asked is that there's a person there that was more popular than anybody else. His picture is on a wall. They
Barack
celebrate his
Obama.
birthday. No.
that
They
was my
celebrate his
guess.
birthday and everything else. And so they
Che Guevara.
they were telling us that there's this guy was in the war, in the revolution. He was a general, and the people loved him. And when the revolution was over, he was in the middle part of the country, and he was coming back and mysteriously disappeared forever.
Oh, I think I heard about that he would have been the rival to Castro.
There would have been no rivalry. He would have been the person that would have been in charge.
And who
he
is
was
it?
loved so much, but I don't remember the guy's name.
Oh, for
But-
Mark,
but-
you find out for the next show.
I will tell you. But it was interesting because the tour guide didn't deny. I mean, he basically told that story.
Wow,
So
how about that?
He basically told the story, so it was kind of interesting.
Yeah, well, it was very interesting to have you on our
Well,
show.
thanks. I enjoyed being here.
And learning about that. First person I've had an extensive conversation with that's been to Cuba.
That's right. So
But on a basic level, it clearly was that poor.
yeah, and I would encourage people to go. You need to go there. It's safe, and if you get a chance, you really should go there because it is really something to get a chance to see something like that. You don't get to see that much in your lifetime. There's probably only a handful of places in the world that are really like that.
Right.
And so it's worth it. It was safe. I would recommend that people go.
You'd pick Cuba over North Korea then to travel. to.
Definitely pick Cuba over North Korea.
Well, thanks for being on our show. We're glad to have you, and obviously you're welcome back anytime.
No problem. Thanks for letting me be here.